And of course, my recorder wants to be difficult today because there's so many people here.
I see your recorder.
You see him?
Next to Derek.
Oh, yes.
Left on my screen.
Crystal's Fathom note taker is here.
Recording paused. Click to unpause. Recording with Fathom. Okay, perfect. We are officially recording. Welcome everybody to the Accessibility Book Club meeting for May. I'm Crystal Scott, your host today. I'm also the founder of the Accessibility Book Club. We are now up to 3,408 members as of this morning. So thank you all so much for being a part of this community. And thank you to a few folks who are here today. I want to first introduce my co-book club managers. We have Ricky Onsman in the house. Hi, Ricky. Thank you for being with us today. And we have John Farrell here as well. They're both going to be helping to moderate the chat. So if you guys want to say hello, post where you're coming in from, we'd love to see you guys in the chat. And then as we progress today, I'm going to hand off to Lainey Feingold, and she's going to help me co-host today because she's most familiar, of course, with the book and the authors. I believe we have the publisher here as well. And she has asked some specific authors to share a few, share the speaking time today to give an overview of their chapters. So for housekeeping, if anyone has questions as we go, we would love to see those questions in the chat. We are going to get through a few authors speaking about their chapters. Lainey's going to go through the framework with us to explain how that came to be. And then we're going to save about 35 minutes towards the end to answer those questions. So please do post those. And I just wanted to start by saying that this was definitely the 2026 book that I was most looking forward to. We and the book club managers decided to give this a full 2 months because we knew that this book was going to command a lot of attention, and we wanted to be thorough with this book. We are at 368 pages. There are over 30 chapters and over 30 authors that contributed to this book. The collection that argues digital accessibility is fundamentally an ethics issue, not just a technical or legal one. And it has over 600 years of combined accessibility and disability advocacy experience, which is amazing. So thank you so much to those who are here that contributed. And Lainey, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Crystal. Thanks to the organizers, Ricky and John. And Crystal, if you don't follow Crystal on LinkedIn, you probably do because you're here. But if you don't, really, we have a lot of gratitude for your shining a spotlight on this book before it was coming out. We appreciate the 2 months. So what we thought we'd do is, oh, and also I'm really glad to hear it's recorded because I know a lot of people who wanted to come and couldn't. So we'll be sure to get the word out about the recording, encourage new people to join. So what we thought we'd do is, I want to introduce our publisher, Randy Slack, who's here from Taylor and Francis. So excited. She's been phenomenal. And then I'll do a little bit overview of the book, talk about the digital accessibility ethics framework, which is the core of the book. Then Crystal Scott's manager, Crystal Preston-Watson. I'm never in a room with two Crystals, so I knew I was going to make that mistake. Crystal Preston-Watson, who wrote one of the foundation chapters on accessibility and disability. She's here. She'll talk for a few minutes. And then the other part of the foundation is about the legal landscape and the framework, which, as I said, I will cover, and also about the AI. The AI author, Ottah Treviranus, couldn't be here today. So even though it's in the foundation, we'll talk about that at the June meeting. And last but not least, who I'll put first, is Derek Shields, who is our impact campaign manager, has just been phenomenal help. His name's not on the cover, but it should be. So let's just start. Derek, say hello so people know who you are. And yeah.
Thanks, Lainey. Hi, everyone. This is Derek Shields coming to you. As Lainey said, I've been involved for a little while behind the scenes, and then as the book launch came about, help out with the impact campaign. I've had the opportunity to work closely with Lainey and the authors in preparing to talk about the book and make the ethics framework be released into the wild for others to learn about. And as Lainey and I learned recently, we're trying to make ethics cool again. And so I think values-driven information that Lainey's going to share with you and Crystal and other authors will try to make that a little bit more self-evident. But it's great to be with you, and thanks to Crystal and the Accessibility Book Club for shining a 2-month spotlight on the book.
Randy Slack, who's been our publisher rep from Taylor and Francis. We have a global publisher, but we all know it's all about the people who work there and relationships. So glad Randy could join us. Randy, say a few words, introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me. I'm Randy Slack, not Randy Cohen, despite what it says on the thing. It's my old name. But I'm really grateful to be here. I remember the day that the book, I get a lot of book proposals as a publisher and an editor at Taylor and Francis. And I remember the day that this book proposal came across my desk. And I thought immediately that I have to be a part of this project because it's just such a fantastic and timely book. And working with Lainey, Regine, and Chancey, the editors, and this incredible group of authors has been an extremely rewarding journey for me. I've been there every step of the way. I've read every chapter in the book as it was drafted and gave feedback to Lainey, and it's just been a really amazing process. And, you know, I'm so happy that I can help to amplify this diverse group of voices with this book. It's already sparking a lot of conversations and connections, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to work alongside such talented people. The book has been out for just a few weeks, and it's already making a huge impact. It's on its way to being one of our best sellers already, only after a few weeks in print, which is pretty exciting. So my hope is that it will continue to make an impact and it will inspire meaningful change in the tech industry. And I think it will, definitely. So thanks for letting me join today.
Thanks, Randy. Okay, so I'm Lainey Feingold. I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure of the book and about the framework. So the book is in 3 parts with an introduction and a conclusion. I really don't want you to skip the introduction and the conclusion because, you know, it's like the introduction is kind of a too long, don't read sort of thing. And we tried to lay out the introduction and the conclusion or by the 3 editors, and we just tried to lay out what we're trying to do. And in the conclusion, it just felt, I don't know, I almost had tears in my eyes when I was writing the conclusion because, like we said, our dreams are big for this book. Like, we have the 600 years. If we added up all the years, everyone on this call, I see some, you know, Charles Hall, some long timers, you know, who aren't authors, 1,000 years, you know, and we still don't have everything accessible. It's still not second nature. It's still something that gets left behind. So the idea of the book is that an ethics lens, an ethics framework, maybe can help change that story. So the foundation has chapter 1, which explains the framework. The digital accessibility ethics framework is in 3 parts. First of all, it's values. Like Derek said, this is a values-driven strategy. This is a values-driven tool. You know, I've been saying values-driven tool. My husband, he's not in tech. He said tool, that's like a hammer or something. I'm like, no, in digital, we talk about a tool, but we're really talking about a strategy. So it's values-driven, and we have 10 values. And the values, which I have scotch taped on my desk, just in case I'm in a motion that I can't like remember what they all are, but things like equitable experiences, privacy, security, agency, transparency, fairness, legal compliance, a value, but not the main driver. And first off, inclusion and non-discrimination. So those are the values, but this is not an academic book. This is not a book to sit on the shelf. This is a book with strategies to bring those values to our work and community and change the narrative around digital accessibility. So in addition to the values, the framework has actions and the framework has questions. is also a chicken and the egg thing. When you live with a book, I don't know if you've ever written a book or you want to write a book. It's all you're thinking about for like 4 years. And then all of a sudden you have to turn it into sound bites, which is a little bit challenging. And I feel like I'm learning how to do it. The actions are tied to the values like, oh, we're not paying disabled people for feedback. That's not fair. So to be fair, to live up to the value of fairness, we need to pay people with disabilities fairly. And we'll talk more about that through the other authors. The questions are what I think, Derek, I'm not sure these actual words are in the book. The word pause is in the book. I kind of think Derek came up with power of the pause, because every single day we're all making decisions about tech. You know, which direction should this go in, and what features should this have, and a million questions. Who, you know, what teams are working on this? What if we stopped, and what if we asked questions tied to the values? What if we stopped and said, what assumptions are we making about who's going to use this product? What assumptions are we making about who we are building for? What if we stopped and said, who will be left out if we take this path? Oh, we don't know. You don't know? Well, maybe you should ask questions. How do disabled people use this technology? How would they? You can see questions. So in the book, the authors have taken their subject matter and looked at it through this lens, taken a couple of the values and then said, okay, what questions should we be asking? What action should we be taking so that our work in this space meets these values, is ethical? So that is the framework. Chapter 1 describes how we came up with it. We have every one of the values listed, and we give sample questions and actions. Really important to say that this book is not like something you have to study and take a test on, and that we wrote every action and question. This book is for you on the call, you, the world at large, to use. So there could be questions. There are questions we didn't even think about. There are actions that you won't find in the book. But at the end of every chapter, there's a reflection question for the reader that says, you know, what is your view of, you know, what could you do to live up to these values? Or what could you do? What kinds of questions could you ask? So that's chapter 1 of the framework. Chapter 2 of the framework is Crystal. I'm going to turn it over to Crystal in a minute. Chapter 3 is AI, and chapter 4 is a global legal landscape, which I wrote, and basically is intended to say, you know what, this legal compliance matters, but it's not the end all be all. Lawsuits in the United States aren't the end all be all. We take a global view. We talk about the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. I interviewed lawyers in India, somebody in Ethiopia who's blind, who was a judge, have some interviews just to remind us that this is global, centered on people. So before I turn it to Crystal, what I want to do is have every author who's here just say, turn on your camera if you're comfortable, and say your name and what your chapter, either title or what it's about. So those of you who are here know when we get to questions, you could pose questions directly to the authors we have in the room. So I'll start with who I see first, who is Margot Jaffe.
Hi, everyone. This is Margot, she, her pronouns. I'm here in Seattle, Washington, and I wrote Chapter 8, Empower All Minds, Cognitive Accessibility Ethics, and it was a privilege to be part of this project.
Thank you, Margot. It was a privilege to read your chapter, and I learned from you, as well as I can say this about everybody, so much about so many things that I didn't know. Next, I see Matt May.
If I can find my mute button. Hi, I'm Matt May, and I wrote a chapter on burnout as an accessibility ethics issue.
Something that is, we can all I'm not a person who ever would have said I was burnt out, but I learned a lot from Matt's chapter, and I think that I'm glad I got a weekend this weekend with my daughter to celebrate her birthday at the beach, not thinking about the book. Oh yeah, that's like.
Will you guys also include your chapter numbers, please?
I have the book. Matt, you know your chapter number? I think it's 19.
It's in the middle somewhere. I don't know. I still don't know how much it could be.
Yeah, it's chapter 18.
On the spot.
It's chapter 18, and it ends section 2, which I should have mentioned in terms of the structure of the book. After the foundation chapters, section 2 is basically how do we do accessibility with ethics? How do we do our work as accessibility people, workers, professionals? How do we do that with ethics? So in that chapter are things like the ethics of voice recognition technology, or who sees what, ethics in describing the visual world, the overlay chapters in there. So those are chapters 5 through 18. Josh is here representing the whole section, Josh Kim, which we'll talk about later. So Matt's chapter ends that section 1, which wasn't really coincidental, because we can't do accessibility ethic. We can't do our accessibility work ethically if we're burnt out. The whole foundation of accessibility work is the people. So, okay, Mike Gifford.
Yes. So my chapter was 27. Digital accessibility and open source need each other. And it was a lot of fun working with this with the rest of the team, and really looking forward to see where this all goes.
Okay, Josh Kim, I'm going to save. Crystal, I'm going to save because they're going to talk to you more. Josh Miele.
Hi, folks. Sorry, not 100% camera ready, but I'll do it anyway. My chapter is chapter 10, and it is about the ethics of putting on accessibility hackathons and accessibility-related student capstone projects. And I'll just say that this last week, we GitHub ran an open source assistive technology hackathon at their headquarters in San Francisco. And I was lucky enough to be asked to be the keynote speaker and to help a little bit with some of the organizing. And in organizing that hackathon, I, because the book hadn't quite come out yet, so I gave the organizers a preprint of the chapter 10, the chapter that I wrote. And I don't know if it was because of the chapter or not. I'll take a little bit of credit, but it was one of the most inclusive and ethically run and just incredibly wonderful hackathon type events I've ever been at. And it incorporated so many of the digital accessibility ethics principles that I mentioned in my chapter, and so many of the pitfalls that I had highlighted in that chapter were avoided. So I think it's already working, and I can, I could say lots more about the ethics of these kinds of hackathon events that are related to accessibility, but it's all in the chapter. So I hope you all read it.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think that's all the authors except for Crystal and Josh K, who I've taken to call Josh K since we have Josh M for Josh Miele. So Crystal wrote chapter 2. After we explain what the framework is, Crystal gives an introduction to accessibility and disability. Crystal, handing it over to you to just talk for a couple minutes about your chapter.
Yeah. So yeah, I know a few of you, but for those who I don't know, I'm Crystal Preston-Watson. I have been in accessibility for probably around close, I think 9, I'm getting close to a decade, in. And I'm right now, I'm just a consultant, pretty much whoever wants me to deal with their accessibility in their company, I will I will go and help them out. So when it comes to my chapter, mainly like when Lainey like first like came to me, like I was like, I was like, well, I was like, I don't know what I can contribute. I was really, I'm someone who takes, kind of pride into being able to dive into any sort of issue, just like because of my journalist background. So if I don't know something, I can go in, research, dig, and, and find out about it. But, I wanted something, I wanted to make sure what I was providing was really, something that I could really impart on people and then really give a good grasp. And then as we talked more, I realized that, Lainey reminded me I'm someone that does really well in breaking down ideas and topics and subjects for people who may are new to them. So that's kind of how we first that's how we kind of decided on me being this kind of foundational chapter about accessibility and disability. That's something I find like I usually do no matter what, when I'm first new into a project or a company in an accessibility role, like the first thing I am like, well, what do you know about disability? Also accessibility, but I also want a preference like for them, like, what do you know about disability? And I find a lot that even people who know things about accessibility don't know a lot about disability. It's a lot of anecdotal, and that's good. Sometimes that's really good to have that direct experience, but it doesn't. It's just a very narrow experience, and they don't have this kind of overall like view and look. And so that was kind of how I was approaching this. It's a lot. And I do state that of like, this is only the starting point. It's enough to get you into this book if you're, kind of new to a lot of these topics and to, obviously new to this framework to kind of grasp this fundamental this foundation. So because ultimately the reason why we're doing this is because of people with disabilities, and that needs to be focused on, and that needs to be, be that initial reminder. So that was kind of my thoughts going to, I have to admit, the bulk of this writing, I was very sick. I actually had like major surgery during this. I mean, to be completely honest, I was actually dying. Like when I was writing this, I actually had, my doctor was at one point was like, yeah, if you don't get this surgery, you're gonna die. So, and I was like, and she was like, you need to do it in a couple of weeks. It was January of 2024, and I was like, how about May? So because I wanted to get the bulk down. So that is, so it was all, even though I already have, visual impairments, actually 2 visual disabilities and social anxiety, I was also just had some major health issues while I was writing this. I remember touching up and like maybe I think even emailing Lainey right before, like maybe a couple days before my surgery, where I was writing my will, and I was also emailing.
Okay. I'm gonna have to interrupt you here. Yeah. For 2 reasons. One, we have to get to Josh.
Yes,
so
yes.
Plus, you have shared, like, thank you for sharing all that. And now I'm like, oh my God, was I like kind?
No, it was, no. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to know. I'm really glad.
I'm so glad you're here. And I just want everyone to know, if you don't know, Crystal, the reason we all wanted you to write this is because I've seen your talks, and you're so generous with your expertise. She has Crystal Con, which is a conference just where Crystal tells you everything you need to know, and I knew that you could write a chapter that, again, it's not an academic book. The introduction talks about, accessibility now, somehow it's gotten a little waylaid. The disabled people who this is about aren't always front and center. Instead, it's checklist or legal compliance or whatever. So, Crystal, I think you wrote a really good chapter, and I'm so grateful that you are here and didn't die and didn't need your will, and may you have a long life of continuing to share your accessibility expertise. Josh Kim, don't tell us anything bad about your health situation.
I am getting through it, day by day, but oh my God, Crystal, you're the GOAT. Respect you so much. Hello, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Josh Kim. I wrote chapter 5, which is really just like my best approach at trying to summarize how we might even start relinquishing more power to disabled communities in the design process, which has been a very broken process for a very long time. So a really big goal of mine while writing this chapter was to call out a lot of the biases and limitations ingrained into what I think a lot of us learn and can perceive as like a standard design research process. And luckily, it's relatively straightforward to grasp what those are when we look at it more from a lens of, say, power dynamics. For example, simply asking who's leading the research, who's penning the invitations to do the studies. All of these things can help, I think, unveil a lot of the ethical shortcomings on who essentially has the power to do design work in the first place. And to Sarah's point in the chat, I write about this concept of like people being relegated and flattened into like literally sticky notes or research objects. So again, like in the design research process, it can be pretty common for folks to alchemize that complexity of people into sticky notes onto a affinity map. But I think as Crystal covers like super, super well in her chapter, like people are complex, disabilities extraordinarily complex. So finding alternative ways to either give them more power through methods like member checking that we might get from like the trauma-informed design community, to even relinquishing that power in totality and how or what methods we use in the first place can be very revolutionary. And again, the really cool thing about this that really excites me is that none of this work is new. I'm really just a messenger in this chapter. There's been such a deep trend, I think, pushing for more radical, participatory, decolonizing, trauma-informed approaches through folk like Victor Doa, Sarah Hala, Dory Tunstall. Like the list goes on and on and on. Charles, that is exactly right. People are chaos. I love that. And again, I think, Lainey, you call this out in your chapter too. It kind of rings out the book, the idea of all of this being built on top of the foundations of the disability justice movement, organizations like Sins Invalid, among many others. So more than anything else, to be completely honest, I'm really just excited for readers to become more familiar with these topics if they haven't been introduced to these amazing people yet, and try to explore ways they can begin to apply that to their work or resist and push back. And if I could have just like one ask from the people here, like dig into my footnotes, that was like my biggest point of pride. Lady, I know we've gone back and forth on that for a very long time, but like if I could have shoved like 100 citations into my chapter, I would have done that immediately. There's just so many phenomenal people and resources and movements that I've done my best to try and highlight, because there's only so much I can cover in a single chapter. So like grab a shovel, dig deep. There is so much more to be had there. I really am just a messenger in this case.
Well, a great if that's how you want to see yourself, I will say a great messenger are you, a great messenger. You bring up 2 points. One, and this goes to another thanks to Randy and all her team. So there are footnotes and resources in not every single one of the chapters, but in a lot of chapters. I think Josh Kim and I are in the running for who has the most footnotes. I didn't really check that, but I'm looking at Josh's chapter. He has 27. So we have a note to readers at the front of the book with various things. And one of them is, please read the footnotes. Yeah. And another thing, thanks to Taylor and Francis, we do have some images in the book. and I lost where I am. Oh, you can't really see, but Josh's idea of the sticky notes being cut in half. He did a nice graphic where the top of the sticky note says, "This solution sounds really great." And the bottom says, "But I don't think I would actually have the time to use it." But there's a scissors and it's cut, indicating that the designer is only listening to the top part. Right, Josh? Did I get that right? So, and yeah, so there's a lot of, I'd say, I don't know, Derek, how many chapters have pictures? Maybe out of the 32, maybe 20, 18? I can't see where anybody is here. So Derek, if you know, say so. If not, you'll just have to read the book and find out. Okay, so that's the pictures, that's the footnotes. And I know what I was saying earlier, at the end of every chapter, the authors explain how they applied the framework. And another thanks to the publisher is that in the print book, the takeaways, which are those ethics framework, every chapter has them after the foundation. They're called Digital Accessibility Ethics Takeaways, and they have the name of the chapter. They say what values, what actions, and again, not set in stone, just suggested actions, suggested questions, and the reader reflection part, which I was not clear about earlier, says, what actions, questions, or other reflections could you as the reader bring to your work and community about this topic? So our goal, again, is not to have this stay inside the book, but to bring it to work, to bring it to your communities. That is what we plan for our plan to tell you, because we want to hear your questions, comments on the authors who spoke, comments to the other authors who were introduced at the beginning. Has any other author joined since we did the author introductions? I don't think so. So are the questions all going into the chat, Crystal, or?
We got a couple of questions in the chat so far. I think mine was the first one to pop up. Please, anyone correct me if I was wrong. But may I, Lainey?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So my question is for Crystal, and it's about page 36. So I felt like when I was reading through this that I felt like kind of like an Easter egg, right? Like it just kind of, it popped up and it really stuck with me. So I'll read the paragraph if you don't mind. Disability is a culture, a community, an identity. We often say, what is a community anyone can join at any time? The disability community. Birth, aging, accident, illness, or crime can be a doorway to this part of the human family. So I don't know if a lot of people know that I'm a justice impacted individual. I actually served 5 years in prison, and I've been out and among society again for about 7 years, just celebrated 10 years clean and sober yesterday. And so when I read this part, I was like, wait a minute, they're including me too, right? And like it really made me feel like more of a part of that community. And I did a little bit of research, and Google says that crime is not a disability. But I know like you included that for a reason, and I wanted to hear why. And I also wanted to thank you for making me feel like included in the community.
I mean, I think, when they talk about crime, it's like, well, crime is crime, and it's, it's not, it happens and then that's it. But crime has long lasting effects, and that is not just for perpetrator and and victim, but also having I've had family members who have gone to prison and to jail, and the reasons why were not just simple. And a lot of times they did have either substance abuse issues, or had mental health and and other sort of issues that caused them to to commit crime. So it's one of those things of it's it is a complex. It is, it's, and I'm someone who wants to, I'm always about kind of reaching, approaching those topics. But yes, like, that is part of it. Like, you can't just deny because it's uncomfortable. It is what it is. A truth is a truth. And, that is why I wanted to include it, because I think, we make everything very, kind of just like, black and white, but it really is, it's complex, it's chaos. And that's why I included that, because yeah, like, there are people, who, if they would have had, gotten help for, mental health issues, for substance issues, probably would never have gone, to prison and jail. And, and the fault is that we're not treating people, we're not treating their disabilities. And that needs to be put in there. That needs to be labeled what it is.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that, Crystal. It really did mean a lot seeing that. And I know that there are a lot of access issues with people who are, currently incarcerated. Everything's getting more digital. I know that tablets are going in, but I'm not sure, how accessible those tablets really are for that disabled community, that is incarcerated. So I know there's a big piece of that that's not always talked about. So
I'm actually researching it right now. So I'm just trying to get more access to those. They're called like the jail tablets. So yeah. It's been kind of hard to get access to those, but I'm trying to get access to those to test the accessibility of those out. So,
well, hey, I've got my old one here, Crystal. I'll mail it to you, girl. Just look me up after the meeting.
Yes, definitely. Yes. That's
okay,
awesome.
I see that we have another author who joined, Erin Brown. Erin, if you're comfortable turning on your camera, just introduce yourself and say what your chapter is about so everyone knows if they want to ask questions about that. And hi, nice to see you.
Hi, everyone. It is so great to be here. Yes, I'm Erin Brown. I'm a disability inclusion consultant here in the Bahamas. And so I'm sorry that I'm late. We were having connectivity issues. But I joined in right in time because Crystal, y'all are on it. I love the fact that y'all are making those connections when it comes to digital accessibility. So I am also in education, higher education. I lead the Office of Disabilities and Compliance at the University of the Bahamas. So digital accessibility is really, really important. But I'm also, because I'm in a small island state, we call it, we have an annual hurricane season. So natural disasters, emergency and disaster preparation is absolutely important. And so my chapter not only focused on digital accessibility from inclusive communication, so sign language, easy to read, easy to process information, but also what to do during those disaster and emergency times. That is very important for the prevention or the pre-disaster, during, post, relief, recovery, all of that, those inclusive strategies and things that needs to be done that intersects digital access as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the book. I just met Erin through putting this book together and, wanting someone who, let me just say, who could be better to write a chapter than a disabled woman from the Bahamas where there's hurricanes? And then she turned out to be this great person. It was so fun to connect with. So yeah, really glad you're part of it. Okay. Does anyone have a question they have not written in the chat that they want to ask? And I'm gonna,
Charles had a question earlier, actually.
Okay, Charles, why don't you say your question? I did see it, but I don't see it here right now.
If you can't get to it, I do have it pulled up, Charles.
Oh, okay. Yeah, why don't you just read it? Oh, Charles, you want to?
I'm in a noisy environment, so.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, John, why don't you just read it?
Sure, I'll go ahead and read it then. So how do you, the authors, feel about orgs incorporating values into design principles, assuming the principles advise product design, engineering, as well as design systems and decision systems?
Now you have to figure out who's going to answer.
Josh, you want to answer?
Josh was the first to raise their hand.
I have thoughts, but they might be on the heavier side. So someone can go first. I could probably go after if someone else wants to take it. Otherwise, I can just jump right in with heavy stuff.
Any other author want to say something about that? Josh Kim, go for it.
Yes, I absolutely love this idea. I think I write about it in my chapter as well, of getting that North Star aligned earlier in that process as soon as you possibly can. But something that I do want to acknowledge is depending on the organization that you're sitting in. I think I've experienced in on the civic tech side, having those values a little bit easier to enforce or build communities around and really push towards. But in other organizations, particularly those, I think, a lot more motivated by like for profit and like maximizing shareholder value, among many other things, you're immediately going to butt up against, I think, just the larger effects of ableism at scale and like the entire inertia that runs behind that. So as much as I want to say like, yes, I believe this is an amazing first step, I think it's also important to acknowledge the situations and the environments where it's not as tenable. And in those cases, like, I know I end my chapter in the note on unionization. I'm finding other ways to pull back power to the people themselves. If anyone hasn't, like, You Deserve a Tech Union is a really great book. I highly recommend it. It talks how to start that process of organizing by Ethan Marcoux. Don't tell my employer this. This is like my own opinions. It does not reflect the company that I'm working for, but I think it's very rad.
Matt May?
So in my chapter, I actually talk about reward systems, which sounds like a non sequitur when you're talking about burnout, but the reality is that when you're talking about values in the context of a corporation or an organization, values only go as far as they are executed upon. And if you don't have anything that says that you are that rewards you for doing the morally right thing, or the thing that we agree on in terms of the values, or that penalizes you for doing the wrong thing, you don't have a value system. And when you don't have a value system and you're contributing your goodwill to a system moving forward where they can all just say, well, we really can't make it this time around. Like, we have too many bugs to fix. We have too many. And as I say this, I see people's heads nodding. When you don't have a way to ensure that these values are going to be enforced, it's kind of spinning your own wheels to have everybody say that it matters to them, when you can't validate that it will actually matter when the chips are down.
If anybody else has a comment or wants to weigh in on it, you don't have to be an author. This is like a conversation. So for that or for any other topic we get to. Ricky?
As I was reading the book, I really considered that I agree with almost everything that's written in the book in terms of having ethics involved and inform what we do. But I wonder how realistic that impact is going to be in a world where the leader of the biggest country, most powerful country in the world, mocks people with disability, uses the R word, where we have systems that ignore people with disability deliberately. How do we take the ideas that are in this book and not just resonate them to each other in an echo chamber, but make them have an impact in the real world?
I might have something to say about that, but Monica, why don't you go first? You're on mute. Monica, you're on mute.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, now you're good.
Okay, sorry. So I'm going to just piggyback off on Ricky for a moment, but for me, I think I have to believe in hope that things will change, Ricky. And the fact that you've got the EU countries. There's so many countries doing this, but the point I wanted to kind of just I had a conversation with a senior leader, and I just won't name companies at this point in time, but he told me that they were part of his organization, and he led the global shared services aspect of it. And one of the things was, even though accessibility was baked right in and they had toll gates, when they came towards the end, everything just got pushed to the back. Why? Because it became the 5% population kind of thing. In order to serve the 5% population, we will get to it. And we all know, at CVS, I know that very well, how everything was a debate. But I think where the tables turned for us is when we got the policy written with the compliance requirements. Then the toll gates, kind of just made more meaning. So I just love to hear what others have to think about or say about, where their policies have teeth in the organizations, or was I the only pushy one?
Well, yeah. Before we answer that more, another author just joined us, Victoria Ottah. Victoria, we're just asking the authors, just if you're comfortable turning on your camera, saying who you are, saying what chapter you wrote. And you're on mute if you're there. Well, I see you there, but. Okay, well,
I'm here. So unfortunately, I will not be able to turn on my camera. It's
fine.
Actually pretty late here. I just joined in, so can I come around and speak in in 1 minute, if that's fine?
Yes, of course. Yeah, so, and you don't have to turn your camera on. Why don't you just in case it doesn't work, say what your name is, where you're from, and what your chapter is about.
Okay, just give me 60 seconds. Let me get my stuff out.
Okay. You don't need the exact name of the chapter. I know, I've been working on this book for a long time, and I cannot remember chapter numbers, chapter names. I will say this, the dream of this book, the idea of this book is that by putting it into an ethics frame, maybe we can create a little bit of a shift. Maybe not. It is capitalism after all. And a person in another gathering we had said, people don't like ethics. People are whatever. But the idea here is it's worth a try, because just focusing on the legal hasn't worked. It's actually narrowed accessibility, where people forget it's about people with disabilities. So can we change the conversation enough with actions and questions to maybe make a dent in how people are thinking about our issues? Victoria, ready?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Hello everyone. Again, I apologize. It's 10:49 p.m. here, so I'm trying to keep sharp here. So I am Victoria Ottah. I am an accessibility advocate. I'm happy to say I'm an author, and congratulations to everyone again. My chapter was public relations, marketing, accessibility, ethics, and I want to quickly say that this was actually an interesting topic for me when I was writing it, because coming from a country where accessibility is not seen as a necessity just yet, it gave me the opportunity to weave that in, the experience of the country, talk about, based off the conversations I've had with people with disabilities here, talk about the experience firsthand. So it was really interesting. I'll say it's kind of touched home. Yeah, so it was an interesting topic for me to delve into. Yeah. I mean, if there's any question on the topic, if anyone has any question, please the chat, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for being part of it. And yeah, having the, we are always saying we have 39 authors, they're from 10 countries. It wasn't just like a thing to say in the marketing. It was because we wanted the book to reflect that disabled people are everywhere, the issues are everywhere, accessibility is needed everywhere, and it's really great. In this call we have Bahamas and Nigeria and Canada and the US. Good for Canada. And so that's 4. Next week we'll have people from more of the countries. Okay, so we have about 9 minutes if you keep a very serious end time. So does anyone who hasn't asked a question or made a comment want to make a comment?
Lainey, I think we have 2 questions in the chat. I think they may have been answered in the chat, but I did want to give Leah or Eva an opportunity to speak up if they wanted to ask more about their questions.
Okay, Eva, why don't you go first?
Okay, so my question is really about, on a personal level, you can apply the framework, but how do you really apply it when you don't have authority and there are decisions being made that are out of your hands? So for example, we're about to roll out our first ever chatbot on our website, and my school happens to be the first one. Unfortunately, it doesn't have speech to text feature in it. That has been deemed out of scope. So if I think of applying the framework, I would have been able to apply the framework on my end and thought, who are we excluding by not having that feature in the chatbot? But the people who are really making that decision on top, they have already decided it is out of scope. So in that case, part of this is where the frustration comes in, right? The burnout comes in, but how much do you rely on the framework to influence things that are out of your control, I suppose? And how are we really targeting the use of this framework?
There's been some good comments on your question. Do you have access to the chat?
Yeah.
Comments on it in terms, yeah. Well, does anyone besides the authors, me, the editor, have a comment about that? Because I mean, you hit it. And we thought about that while we were writing. Obviously, all readers, it's authority, it's power, we don't all have it. So maybe if ethics becomes woven into what the organization thinks about, maybe through meetups, maybe through lunch and learns, maybe through, then the next time where someone's making a decision, can we creep it up higher? I mean, it's not something that can happen overnight, but it feels like someone mentioned, we live in such an unethical country right now. I mean, many people have said, I'm glad you wrote about ethics, because it's not, ethics are dead in the United States. It's just terrible. How can we get the ideas, even on a smaller scale, people starting to think about it? People starting to think about it, so the next time they're faced with a decision to make, they look at the available pathways. They take the power of the pause, and they say, or even if they say, I'm not going to pause and ask these questions, at least they're thinking about disabled people being excluded. Like we somehow, that's why we say we have big dreams, and it's going to take all of us. We have to start thinking about these things in terms of exclusion of real people. That's what I think. Anybody else on that?
If I may, Lainey, this is Monica.
Hold that thought 1 second, Monica.
Sure.
Was the other person had a question, hasn't spoken yet? Crystal, you mentioned besides Eva, there was one other question in the chat.
Leah.
Yeah, Monica, hold that thought for a second.
This is Leah. I'm calling in from the Philadelphia area. And my question was around, I know that you said right at the beginning that this is not an academic book. It's really something to help us in practice and to help guide us and to help us think of our own questions. But I was wondering, you know, if or how the authors imagine that this could be used in a classroom setting. And I'm specifically thinking about graduate training. Like, my field is public health, and you know, I think this would be a tremendous book. I'm still waiting for my copy in the mail, but just from what I've heard, this would be a tremendous resource, you know, so that students and new professionals are going out into the world with this kind of framework and thinking versus getting to a new workplace and being like, oh, you know, and they haven't talked about accessibility or ethics at that time. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
You know, that is a great question, and it's something Derek, who was introduced earlier, Impact Campaign, and I have been talking about, because we went to Austin for the Access U conference, and we did a 3-hour workshop, the very first one, and we shared what the framework was, and Eva was there, so maybe you can speak to it. It felt to us on our end, you know, we broke people into groups and said, pick your own problem, you know, pick a problem and see if the framework, you can apply the framework to it. And it felt like there was a lot of good engagement around that. And that would be a beautiful thing for students. Is Randy Slack, our publisher, still here? I hope so, because we do want to get into universities. You know, Randy, did you hear that? But yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's a lot of work to get the word out too. I just want to plant that. And part of this early mission, like, it's about selling the books, but we're trying to run all the marketing through the ethics framework. And the ethics of this is we want to get the ethics framework out there. So Lee, I love your question. Anything we can do to help, any ideas people have, you know, for classes, to bring it up to professors, larger groups, of how we can share this would be very welcome and needed. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Monica, you had another thing.
Yeah, no, I was just going to, you know, you said if there was somebody who could speak to Eva's question. So if it's okay with you, I'll just give you 2 cents of mine, Eva. I mean, when I started accessibility, we were just 4 people. We did get to about 100 people, and that is my claim to fame. But I tell you, it just take one tiny step. And one tiny step in your case for chatbot, it could be, there's a ERG, and you know, an employee resource group that has, you know, for people with disabilities. You may internally just say, as within your role, say, I'd like to get your feedback on it. What happens is when you actually have people with disabilities actually using the tool that you have built, that kind of just gets people to start listening. It's just one little, you know, move that one little pebble at a time, and that's, you know, so I will leave it at that, Lainey and Eva.
Okay, Erin, I think we have 1 minute. So Erin, you.
Okay, yes. So the question was so good. I was here drooling. And here's why. In research, disability inclusion is still such a taboo thing. And so what the ethics book and this framework allows persons to do is kind of field out those questions. We've been helping, especially in the Bahamas and in the Caribbean, we don't have much data. We don't have much publicly distributed type of statistics that persons can use when they're drafting or creating their thesis for their dissertation and all of these things. And so they're kind of finding themselves very stuck, even to speak to their lecturers about it. So I agree, this framework, this sense of call that we're giving you questions to think about will help to develop, even in academia, how they treat research. I hope that was quick enough.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, see, I think you guys are like, you're catching that dream flame, you know, and I think we all have it. You wouldn't be in this room, in this book group, if you hadn't been at it for whatever amount of time and seen that there is so much more to do. And we just hope on behalf of all the authors that, you know, the book offers you a tool, a strategy. We want to hear how it goes. We want to hear it, like we write in the conclusion. We want to hear about successes. Doesn't matter how tiny. We want to hear about failures. so we can, you know, learn from them. And we want to hear about topics we missed, apply it to something that's not in the book. It's designed to be flexible. The framework is designed to work on things that aren't even imagined yet. So I will close with just an answer to the person who asked about the audiobook. We want an audiobook. Our publisher, Taylor and Francis, doesn't produce audiobooks. We took the rights back when they were unable to find an audiobook publisher. We've been unsuccessful in finding one. Our agent is trying to find one. We're almost out of ideas for finding an audiobook publisher. Plan B has to be we do it ourselves, which will require resources from the community, a foundation, something, because it's expensive to do it yourself. But it is on our list and we want to do it. So Crystal, do you want to, I want to say thank you to you, and do you want to close? It's 3:01.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Lainey. Thank you to all of our contributors today, for the authors who were on this call. Really appreciate the attendees showing up. And for everyone that is supporting this book, for everyone that's posting on LinkedIn and sharing their joy, sharing what they learn. I also want to encourage everybody to please post your thoughts in the LinkedIn Accessibility Book Club. We really like to get the conversations going in there. I encourage authors and readers alike. If you have something you want to say, please put it in there so that we have one collective place where we can come together and we can talk about the book, we can talk about the chapters, where it was meaningful, and we can make those connections. I love today that I made that connection with Crystal. I will be following up with her afterwards, and I hope other people made connections on this call today. As the accessibility community, it just means the world to me to be able to have these conversations. So everyone, please check in with the LinkedIn Book Club, and a reminder that we will be continuing to read this book through June, and we already have a date set for the June Book Club. It's going to be on June 25th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. I will create the Eventbrite link and share that in the book club at the beginning of June. But since you're on the call, I thought I'd let you all know early. And thanks again for being here. Thank you, John and Ricky, for joining us, my beloved co-managers. I really appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.
Yes, thanks
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, really.
Thank you, everyone. Till next time.
Great. Bye, everyone.
Crystal, do you save the chat?
I don't save the chat, but I did ask my AI chat guy to send me a recap. So I will see what he sends me. Do you want me to try to save the chat before we close out?
I think that would be good. You can, I'm trying to copy and paste it, but I'm not sure I have the whole thing.
Okay, let me see if I can do it. I'm hoping it's going to be in my summary after the meeting.
Thank you so much, all three of you. It was great group. And
It was a wonderful session. Very interactive.
You can see why we need another one.
yes, I should have said we'll get all different authors. I won't be one of them. We'll get.
Well, we need you, Lainey.
Well, I can facilitate because I'm able to, you know, I know who the people are, but yeah. No, this was really good. It's really great to hear how things are resonating with people.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, my first book, Structured Negotiation, is about how you convince corporations to do things. So there is an angle to this that Derek and I have been talking about, like an add-on to the workshop. Like, okay, this is the framework and how to use it. This is good. How do you convince people? And a lot of the strategies that I've used for 30 years, convincing people without lawsuits, I think we could just apply some of them here and see how that goes.
Yeah.
I have a very long to-do list for this book. People are like, my friends like, well, the book's done and you have a lot of time. You want to go on vacation. I'm like,
it's never done. The work is never done.
No, and last thing I'll say before I go. So, Crystal, I just wanted to tell you that in the Access to Justice chapter, which is page 32, chapter 32, I discussed in like 4 or 5 paragraphs various access to justice issues. But then I just had a point where I said, this just scratches the surface of places where legal ethics, legal access to justice ethics come in. And one of them was disabled prisoners and their loved ones. So I didn't address it, but I put it on the table, and I mentioned a case. I've been involved in several cases around disability in prison back in. So
yeah,
it's dropped in there. I'm really glad that two Crystals made that connection.
Very cool. Yeah, I will definitely check that out in 32, and I will be following up with her.
Yeah, she's great. You guys are great.
I know that in Australia, the intersection of Indigenous people, people with disabilities, and people in the criminal justice system is a very, very complex thing. And they are so combined, those three factors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say I'm so glad that conclusion, because I don't want anyone to think this is the end of the story.
Yeah.
You know, there's like, so if this framework gives us another strategy, another tool, there's so many places to apply.
Yeah.
It.
I should say too, Lainey, that your structured negotiation is one of the models that I give to people to say, look, it can be done.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. No, I have structured negotiation workshops too. And I should have really left more room for Eva to say, did she like the workshop? But it felt really strong in Austin. Like we had to, sometimes you break them into groups and people aren't really engaging with each other, but people were engaging. So yeah, I think there's a lot to do. Well, you guys are the best. Thanks so much for this. It was really important to us. It helped raise the group itself, this meeting, but also the run up. It just raised the whole profile of the book, and hopefully it raised the profile of the book club. And
yeah, I think we've
frozen
Crystal.
Perfect timing.
Well, you guys ask her what you wanted to say, then you send me an email. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks a million.
Thank you, Lainey.
Thank you.
Talk to you next month. Bye.
Let's see. I can probably open up LinkedIn and see if Crystal is having internet issues.
Well, my computer just died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was crazy. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
okay,
at least it didn't happen in the middle of the meeting.
Yes,
Yeah.
I totally agree. Wait till the end. Oh my gosh, my recorder is still in here recording too. How weird. Anyways, I was gonna tell Lainey, and I'll text her on LinkedIn, but we've gotten like 400 new book club members,
Wow.
just like in the last month alone since we've been promoting this book. So
Yeah.
it's funny. She's like, you're a little franchise, and I'm like, I almost wish it were a franchise.
Yeah.
Our little volunteer gigs turn into part-time jobs, huh, guys? It's good though. It's good. It's been a good book so far. But yeah, good to see you guys, and thanks for being here. I know we were supposed to connect earlier in the month, and yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. May and June are just ridiculously busy for me. It's like something every